Hello folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, early September up to it's middle of September, so September update, let's call it, time. I've just returned from a little birthday celebration, holiday, very long weekend, and had a wonderful time in the Lake District. Not quite as wonderful as expected because we thought that the final day on the way back we were dropping into Blackpool to the airport to fly in the Mark 9 Spitfire, but I never believed, even before setting off for this trip, that that was ever going to happen, because the Met Office's predictions of the storms coming in over the northwest of the UK was going to hit and it have a big impact, and they got it absolutely right. They were dead right. They predicted 50 plus miles per hour, and I think we had 52 to 55 mile an hour winds. And of course Biggin Hill rang me and said, "I'm sorry, do you know why we are ringing you?" And I said, "I hope you're ringing me to cancel." And she said, yes. I thought you'd be upset. And I said, "Well, I am, but I completely expected this and predicted it very confidently." And I said, "I'd bet my house against this flight going ahead." And she said, "Well, you're right, because they fly from Biggin Hill to Blackpool. The plane isn't based at Blackpool. They have a Spitfire museum there, which is worth a visit, by the way. I understand it's very interesting indeed. I'm going to be having a really good look around that when I get the chance. But they fly it in, and sometimes it stays overnight, but often it doesn't. Often it flies back. So actually, there's a lot of mileage, involved. So they have to be sure that it's going to be appropriate weather. And I think they'll have up to Blackpool probably 3 or 4 bookings a day normally. And they knew, there's no way they wanted to even take off from Biggin Hill. Never mind Blackpool, which was much worse. And the tolerance, as I mentioned in my Goes Road channel, the tolerance of the Spitfire is about 18 to 20 knots maximum crosswind takeoff. And they have to fly under the CA aerials, they have to fly down a runway, they can't go off the grass, even though they're quite capable of doing it, of course. And you see them at air shows in other parts of the world where they land on grass, no problem, but the CAA don't allow that. Their licence is that they must take off on a proper tarmac runway. That was never going to be possible with 55 mile an hour wind. So that was scrubbed. The mission was scrubbed. What I didn't tell you in the Peter Goes Rogue video on my birthday, when I was puffing away on my cigar and my whiskey, none of that today, it's a bit early for any of that. What I didn't tell you is this has happened to me before. It happened 10 years ago, and the last time that my wife very kindly booked me this adventure, but then was from Biggin Hill, because the Blackpool option wasn't there. And the whole thing is a repeat of what happened there. And that was a weird one, because it wasn't a storm this was a proper storm. When we left the lakes, it was pouring with rain and getting windy, but once we got towards the Fylde coast, around the Morecambe Bay area on the motorway on the M6, it was just horrendous. You were fighting to keep the car in the lane. It was real gale force wind. And it was weird, actually, because once we got past Preston, away from that area, and then headed to Wigan, you got to Wigan, the Wigan junction on the motorway, and it was like driving through a curtain. It was just pouring with rain, absolutely happening. The spray was scary driving conditions. There were moments when we're both getting a bit scared. And then you just suddenly, like you're driven through a curtain, it just stopped. Instant. It wasn't progressive, gradual reducing of rain. It just, 1 minute it was horrendous spray and teeming with rain, and the next instant, within 100 yards, I'd say, on the motorway, it was bone dry. It was one of the weirdest things, avenues of weather, like a corridor that I've ever seen. And then it was okay until we got to Warrington. Then actually, as we got back toward the Mersey, it started again, and it was pretty windy and not very pleasant here either. But it wasn't as bad as it was there. It was horrendous. So they were absolutely right to cancel it. I was never in any doubt that was going to happen anyway. So there we go. So looks like it's going to be late October, just finalising the details. But that's I'd rather, as like I said in my other video, I'd rather fly and have the full experience on a day that it's going to be enjoyable and interesting and see stuff, places I used to live and stuff like that. It's going to be very enjoyable. So I'm not disappointed, really. I think maybe it would have been too much after my long weekend, and I've been on the sauce, because I was celebrating. Maybe it wasn't the right date for it anyway. Anyway, moving on. So I want to talk about a few other things. First of all, I'm just going to zoom in only so slightly. I'm going to explain what this photograph is about in a minute. It will become clear. But have you noticed anything different? I've got some new glasses. Have you seen that? They're French and they're in the McLaren colours. They've got carbon fibre sides. They've got orange on the top. And I've told you this before? Have I? Yes, I have told you this before. But I kid you not, these are actually our new glasses. The ones, they're exactly the same model, but the ones developed a fault. The first ones when I showed you, they actually, this isn't too good. I'm a little bit worried about this. The carbon fibre, which is it's genuine carbon fibre, it's not just like a stick or anything. It actually, they were trying to manipulate them to get the fit a little bit better, and they have to heat them and bend them, and it delaminated actually it was glued on. The carbon fibre is glued on to some. It's almost like an ABS, I think it is, the way the orange is, and the two parted company, and it couldn't be sorted. They just said we'll get you new frames. So these are actually a brand new pair of frames again. So you haven't seen these before, even though they look quite familiar. How bizarre, very unusual. But I'm a bit worried because I'm not entirely confident that these might not do the same thing, but we shall see. They were very good about it, the opticians. They sorted it, no questions asked. They took one look at the photo I sent them and they said, ouch, and it was literally like, this was the arm and this was the carbon fibre parting company. And there wasn't much glue on it, and I said I put more glue on my plastic models than that's got, Anyway, so there we go. So I've got new glasses. Obviously we've had this weekend away, and it's about the weekend away partly I want to talk about. A lot of that will be on Peter Goes Rogue on my other channel, but I just wanted to give you this background. Something that's very interesting. You'll see there's going to be a photo montage of my holiday snaps. Hopefully fairly interesting though, because the building we're staying at, it's mainly about the Langdale Chase Hotel. I want to just talk about this briefly, and about this house here. When I did my video and I was puffing away on my cigar and knocking back the whiskey, and thank you to everybody that gave me drinks and presents and everything else, and thanks for all the great good wishes from you all. But very next day I said we're going to Ray Castle. Well, when we looked it up, Ray Castle is closed, annoyingly. This is the one that I said was behind the tree. Couldn't really see it, annoyingly, when I did the video, so you probably thought I was making it up almost. But you can see it, but it's got like a turret that pops above the tree. And it was closed for refurbishment, and it's not had any furniture in it for a number of years anyway, so actually it sounded like a bit of a dead loss. So we didn't go there. We went to Grizedale. Now, a lot of you know Grizedale will remember it from the Lombard RAC Rally. They used to hold, I think, 2 stages there back in the 80s when I think that rally was at its peak, at its zenith, really. But this is a very interesting photo. I'm going to zoom in and I'm just going to talk over it and give you an idea. I'll show you some pictures here. And you will see these again in the proper slideshow, but I want to explain them to you in some context, because here on the modelling channel there is a connection. Now, some of you will remember, so this is Grizedale Hall that's in this photograph. I'll explain it all. Some of you will remember about 3-4 years ago now, I did the kit review on the Airfix 48 scale MEBF109E4, and I was talking about Werner von Vera, who of course was the one that got away, as per the name of the movie, which starred Hardy Kruger in a brilliant, absolutely memorable performance, probably one of his best ever, for sure, if not the best, and a story of this sort of Nazi Luftwaffe airman. He doesn't sort of play on his Nazi credentials at all, but he was an ace, and of course he wants to escape, and they capture him in a field in Kent, and then he is sent to the #1 prison camp. And we had a lot of prison camps. We had prison camps on the Isle of Man, and a prison camp in the Lake District, prison camp Leicestershire Way, I think it was, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, around there. Big enough to hold these people, and it was mainly airmen and U-boat staff, or crew I should say, that were captured in these sites. And von Vera, of course, wanted to escape. Now, Grizedale Hall was this beautiful house that had been turned over to the British government for the purposes of making it a prison camp. So I'm going to zoom in on this and explain the background. So what happened is, this has actually been built and rebuilt. It's been built 4 times in different guises. This is the relevant last guise, built in 1907. And it's a beautiful building in a lovely location. And this was #1 prison camp. Now, the reason I'm banging on about this was it was used as well. Not only was von Vera actually captive there, but it was used in the movie. So the movie is really accurate. But the really sad thing is, and I'll show you some still photos in a second to put this into some context from the movie and from the reality as well. This is a most wonderful property, but it ended up being turned over to the Forestry Commission. Now, I have no beef with the Forestry Commission or problem with them per se, but I do question sometimes. I've heard and seen this before. When they get properties like this bequeathed to them in wills and things, they often just don't. They're not interested in that. You know, they think it's how can we put it, non-core business, shall we say? And this is what happened here. And they made the movie in 1957. I think early 1957. You can tell it was like winter time because there's no leaves on the trees. And then within about 6 months of the movie being made, this site was demolished. And it was only 50 years old. And it's an absolutely stunning mansion house, which would have made the most perfect hotel or hostel, youth hostel. And it is in the most perfect location where there isn't anything else like that, no big hotels at all. And it was there already, in its own grounds. Very, very disappointing, actually, when you hear the story and you think, why did they do that? What was the purpose? And when you look on Google Earth, if you go on Google Earth and put in Grizedale Hall, you'll see what I'm talking about. You can still see the remains, not of the building, well, you can see the outline of it, but this remains, this forward wall with this like a portcullis thing. That remains, the retaining wall with the balustrades. You see, it's got the globes on the top, zoom in, so you can really understand what I'm babbling on about here. Yeah, we'll come to the Phantom later. Look carefully at that wall, and you can see it's got the balustrade here, and it's got the little globes on top, the ornamental globes. Now, most of the globes have gone, but there's still 2 or 3 remaining. But the wall is completely intact, and I actually walked under here, inside, and I'll show you some photos later. So they just demolished it, and they've left the actual site of the hall, just concrete, nothing there. On the far side at the back there is like a toilet block, and then they built a planetarium over here, over to the right. Bizarre, you'll see the photos in a minute. Absolutely bizarre thing to have done, and very wasteful. And the fact that they've left this one, I'm not complaining, because it's very, to me this was a very historic location. If that had been left to the National Trust, I'm not banging the drum for them. I've got no axe to grind here at all. But the National Trust or somebody similar that would receive this and maintain it and use it and make it an educational, establishment. So historical this was, given that it was used as this camp and then it was used in this movie. And it should have been retained for the nation, really. And I'm really disappointed. I was disappointed. I knew the story already, but now I've been there, I'm kind of a bit angry about it, really. And my wife feels the same. She said, why would you do that? What's the purpose of just levelling it at great cost? I suppose it's because it doesn't have the long-term running cost, is the answer. But surely they could have found a buyer for it. And all they've done now is in the forward grounds, a bit further forward of this photo, is now a car park. And that's it. It's just total waste of land. Absolutely unbelievable. And then we say we haven't got enough houses and all this kind of thing in the UK. It's really bizarre. Such a waste. Such a waste. But let me show you. If I zoom you in, and you can see why I'm sort of exercised about this and why I thought it was worthy of talking about and having a visit. Just have a look into this. So this is looking now back out. You can see the car park, if you make it out. That's the car park there in the background with the pay station. So here you've got the balustrade. Some of the globes I mentioned are still left. This is looking out from. I'm now standing where the hall actually was. You see there, where this concrete is here. This is where the hall stood. So let's just flick you in here and just show you a couple. So that's the hall. This is the back of the hall, as seen in the one that got away movie. Here's some photographs that are across the road in the visitors centre. If I just move this out slightly. The hall at Grizedale, seen from the top stairs, taken in September 1907, just after completion of the house, this is. And this is the rear of the house. And there's a very important sloping wall, which is very much featured in the film, the one that got away, where all the prisoners, they have to march out of here and get marched down the road for their daily exercise. The dining room, I don't think the prisoners used that actually, and then there's a complete plan of the house as it used to be. Just an absolutely beautiful, stunning building, The staircase at Grizedale Hall. During the Grizedale Hall auction in 1957, Atkinson's, the joiners of White Stone near A-side, acquired the main staircase. And this is one of the lathe-turned oak balusters. That was actually ended up in Barrow-in-Furness, at a house in Barrow-in-Furness. This is the oak baluster, one of them, which is shown in the museum opposite. The billiard room, look at this. I mean, this is just, why would you want to demolish something like this, especially when it was relatively new, great condition. And then you've got all the German writing on the. This is on the bookcase, which was actually used and is now in the visitor centre with all the different titles. And the library. And this is where that bookcase has come from the library. Isn't that amazing? Roman. Yeah, and they've got this little display of all the bits and pieces. Now, these photos are important because that photo, if you ignore the no entry sign, this features in the film. And you see this is the wall I mentioned, it has these retaining slabs against it. And looking at a different angle, Hardy Kruger and all the prisoners are marched down toward the camera. And there's a gate here where they go through the main gate. And then you can see the retaining wall, which features in the film. And then they come to this spot here. It's taken in the film from a much higher angle. But you'll recognise it in the film because of this sloping roof here. And the post box, which is completely unchanged when the movie was made. And Hardy Kruger shouts to fool the soldiers at the front who are guarding them. He shouts, "Real left!" And in like a sergeant major's voice, making the men at the front think that that's an order. And they all go left, and the others follow. Nobody seems to notice. And they all turn left and go down out through the village. Another shot of it there, a few metres down. So they all come walking down this street here. In the movie, and I'll show you in a second. Here's this is the retaining wall, and it does show. I did see some stills from the film which I don't think are in the movie, where they're all standing around here. And I walked under here, and this was the frontage of the house, looking down into the valley. Now this is the Grizedale Observatory, which they've built, which bizarrely is closed. It says in the info leaf that you can turn up at any time. And then it was completely closed. You couldn't get in or anything, which was really annoying. They've got a planetarium there. And this is this piece of ornate, like an alcove at the front that you just saw with the sort of alcove arched entrance. There it is. So this is the view. Now you see the trees, where here you would have had the hall. Now you've got this bizarre observatory stuck there. It's a complete waste of space. It's such a shame what they did here. Real, to me, vandalism, frankly, and that's leading down to the car park. And that's the main gate exit at the back. Still, again, retains its globes. And that's me. I've gone off the subject there. But then just flicking back, I think there's another couple of photos I may not have actually shown you, which are relevant. Yes, here we go. So that's the back. I think I did show you that one. It says that's the rear. That's the interior. Get it right. Top gallery, looking down. That's the close-up of the rear, which is now just all this. They've actually got a horrible toilet block they put in there, and then nothing else. And it's just all the sort of foundations and concrete. What a terrible waste, you know. You see it like that, and now you can get a bit of an idea. So here's the toilet block I just mentioned, which is just ugly. And this entire concrete area. These are the steps actually into the hall entrance at the rear. And you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the retaining wall with that, like an alcove bit at the front. And this entire concrete area is where the hall stood. Absolute sacrilege. There's the bit at the front. And they've left that to remind you what a horrible thing they did, really. And there's the crazy, you can actually see there. Let's see what there's the observatory, it's a planetarium they've got, and they've got an observatory here with a telescope. Because it's very dark sky, there's obviously no towns around. It's a great spot for it, actually. But I just wish they'd built it bigger or done something else. And leaving these, you can see there's a scene I'll show you in a second, and you'll recognise these in the movie when I show you the stills. It will become a little bit clearer. Oh, we've gone off it now. So let me just flick to the movie scenes, which are actually at the front here. There's the back. And there's the barbed wire in the foreground, you can just about make out. Here is walking down, having just come out, walking down after walking past the that the post box. Here it is. Here's that sloping roof I spoke of. Here's the main gate entrance here, and here's the post box, which has not changed at all in, what's that, 70 years, thereabouts. So it's amazing how little has changed. And this is them walking down on the way out before they get to that point where Hardy Kruger shouts real left and they all turn left, ready to make his escape by lying on a wall and then dropping over when the guard's attention is taken by a local farmer. But so all this is gone. That wall remains, this wall with the supports, side supports. But isn't it a shame that that's been done? I thought that was terrible. I won't show you all the rest because I will do a montage, as I say, including all that. So it's just so when you see that montage, you'll understand what you're seeing. And I wanted to go there because I knew it was very historic and famous for this film. But the fact that it really was the prison camp, it's not just like a movie location, it actually happened there. Somebody said to me, I was talking to somebody in the hotel, they said, yeah, they wouldn't do that today, would they? That would become a listed building. And I don't know why it wasn't a listed building, just for that reason. Because the National Trust could make use of that building like that. They could turn it into an education centre or sell it as a hotel, but have it as a listed building so it can't be altered. To just demolish it was just... If it was an old, a building in poor repair, you could understand it, but very irrational, very irrational. Anyway, moving on. So that'll be coming through. You see more photos of my trip. And if you like buildings and interesting things like that, you'll very much like Langdale Chase, the hotel we stayed at, because that is also very historic. It's got a load of tributes in the gents' toilet. They had really nice paintings. I think they were probably prints rather than originals, but tributes to Norman Buckley, the water speed record breaker, who of course just preceded Donald Campbell, although he carried on after Campbell's death, still breaking records actually. Most of his work was earlier though, and it was even featured in Across the Lake. So those of you that are knowing about these subjects will have seen the BBC, I think it was BBC and Australian TV, and jointly commissioned this docudrama about Donald Campbell, starring Anthony Hopkins as Campbell himself, and my brain's gone, but the lady who played in Secret Army, who played Bernard Hepton's wife in Secret Army, she plays Tonya Byrne, Campbell's wife, very well actually, I've got to say. She's excellent in it, really powerful. And it's a really powerful drama actually. It's about the last couple of months of Campbell's life. And it shows, I mention it because it shows Norman Buckley with Campbell's mother. He was a family friend and he was having tea with Campbell's mother at Langdale Chase, and it shows his car parked outside the car park, and it shows interior shots as well. Anyway, digressing. So there'll be lots of... That's a very interesting historic building. It's had a lot of money spent on it. So there's some very interesting shots there. If you like and interested in old buildings and you want to see what it's like inside, I'll show you some pictures. They even had their own cinema, and you can have special requests. So we turned up and it was on my birthday. Which is the day before, but on my birthday I said, is anybody put in any special requests? And they were going to have Chariots of Fire, which is a good film actually, and I would have watched that, but I noticed they also had The Empire Strikes Back. There is no escape. Join me. I am your father. Etc, etc. And they said, oh yeah, you can have that if you want. And then we sat down to start and it's a cinema, only holds, I think 12 people, I think maximum 12 people in the cellar. And they've done it really well actually. I was quite impressed. I thought, oh, this is going to be a bit rubbish. And then they said, oh, it's DVDs, and the quality of the image will be really poor. But it wasn't. It was very high actually. It wasn't quite 4K, but it was good. It was like being at the cinema. And it started up, and this middle-aged couple walked in, and they said, oh, is it not Chariots of Fire? And the girl said, oh, they've come for Chariots of Fire. And the Australian couple, very nice people actually, and this chap says, oh, what is it you're watching, mate? What's the film you wanted to see? And I said, oh, well, it's my birthday, I was hoping to see The Empire Strikes Back. And he was like, oh no, it's fine, that's way better. And his wife was like, oh, okay. And she said, no, she was good. She said, oh, that's fine. We like that as well, you know. And then we all sat there, all well behaved, and then really enjoyed it just as much as I did. I saw that. It was like being back in 1980. And when this couple left at the end after the film, I said, that takes you back, doesn't it? He said, yeah, it takes me back to being a lad. I really enjoyed that 45 years on, you know. Amazing. A really nice experience to have that on my birthday. So that really topped off my birthday very nicely. To see The Empire Strikes Back, one of my all-time favourite films. A film I watched 7 times at the cinema when it first came out. I may have watched that film more than any other. I think I've watched it probably about 25 times now. 25, 30 times, something like that. Easy. I think it's the Yoda stuff in it that really attracts me as well. It's not just the obvious things that are exciting. But anyway, I'm sure lots of you are fans of it as well. Anyway, moving on. So, for my birthday, I was going to mention to you, I got some amazing gifts from all sorts of people. One amazing gift, well, this is not a gift for the person who owns this. I'll be getting very nervous hearing me talk like this. You'll be thinking, it's a loan, it's not a gift, I want it back. Now this is Neil from Creative Time Wasting, or as I call him, Creative Matchbox Wasting. But anyway, he's got a Tamiya kit here, a beautiful Phantom, which I've never seen before. I've never seen. The only one of these 132 kits I've ever had was the Eagle F15E, and I sold it on stupidly. That was a bit of a mistake, I've got to be honest. One of my mad moments when I was probably a bit short of cash. Anyway, he's got the F4J Phantom from the US Navy. I think, and he said to me, to be honest, when he sent me an email, I said, do you fancy doing a review on this? Because I enjoy your reviews, and I think you do, blah, blah. And I didn't pay, I was really getting busy getting into organising this Spitfire flight and the trip. And I said, oh yeah, I've not done that before, that'd be lovely, you know. And I had it in my head, it was 48 scale, so when it arrived in this big box, I was like, oh my lord. Oh wow. Now, obviously it's not a new kit, but we will be reviewing this in a separate video. What year did they say? 1997. But this is still from a great era of Tamiya. And obviously we're kind of celebrating them still at the moment after the sad death of Mr. Tamiya recently, Tamiya-san. And I thought, yes, that's so Tamiya, and something I've never seen before, so why not? So yeah, don't worry, Neil, I'm not pretending that was a present. It will be returned. This was a present, though. Here's an interesting one. Some of you will be very familiar with this, and some of you will not be, and will be finding this very, very interesting. So this is some resin, and it's from InsideTheArmour.com. Inside the Armour, a company in Bristol, and they specialise in doing. Was it A model? Or was it, I'm sure somebody else did something very similar, but it's basically for the Airfix Stalwart. Now it would be nice. Obviously, I have had this Stalwart, which was an absolute disaster quality-wise, and Airfix have acknowledged that and fully accept it's not good enough. They've now refunded me very kindly. Dale arranged this, and Dale Luckhurst, who's the head of brand at Airfix, has promised me faithfully that he's going to send me another one in due course when they've got a batch of good ones, basically. And he had the stock checked, and I don't want to go into too many details, it wouldn't be fair, but they couldn't really satisfy themselves that there was a good enough example that they wanted to have reviewed by me again, which I will happily do. But there will be more stock coming through, and he said if you can be patient, I'll organise you another one. So that was very kind of him. So my brother-in-law, not knowing this story actually, because I haven't explained it before really, but he didn't know that, and he thought I still got the Stalwart, which I actually gave it to. It was a recent event in my village, and there was a charity event, and I gave it to be auctioned off for the local charity, which I thought was a good thing to do. It was all resealed and everything, and there's no great model builders, not that I know of, apart from me in the village. So some of those quality issues would not be necessarily noticed, and whether it gets built I don't know, but it did raise some good money for charity actually, so some good came of that kit. It wasn't wasted, it wasn't binned or anything like that, and the local charities around here which do a lot of work for people who are retired and have mobility issues and things like that, because we have quite an elderly population where I live. Anyway, digressing, but it was put to good use. So I don't have it anymore, the Stalwart, but Airfix Dale Luckhurst has promised me one will be coming through in the fullness of time. So I hope he watches this and gets a little nudge Just reminded. But look at this. This you're going to enjoy. So if you've got a stalwart, this is going to be manna from heaven. Just check this out. So what we have, I might have done this as a separate video, but it's not big enough to merit a video of its own. But let's have a look at what we got here. We've got two lots of things which are very important. Now, of course, you remember some of us got sink marks. Some of us like me got particularly horrendous ones in places like here on the roof. So this is a completely different roof. That's all in resin, complete with a. It's got the siren sort of horn on the front there, all built in resin in one piece, and it's got. It's also got some grills. Oh yeah, it's got the top grill. Don't know if you can make these out. It's quite hard to see. But here, just beyond the outer ribs, ignore them, there are the grills that people were having a bit of an issue with, where they were a bit filled in on the Airfix moulding as part of the design. Unfortunately, because I don't think you can get it perhaps fine enough with injection moulding. So those grills that you need, that sit on top at the back of the roof here, over at the back there they are. There they are. It's pretty difficult for me to get this to you in a way that's super clear, but I think you get the gist. If you look underneath, they're a rather strange sort of angle the way they've produced it. But you get a proper mesh grill, you get a proper roof without any sink in it for your top hatches, and then on the second sprue you get two different versions. I think there's two different versions of the top hatches. It's not an outer and inner, is it? Or is it? Not quite sure if that's an outer and inner. I haven't got the instructions for it. Have I? No. I think you have to make it up yourself. There's two lots of what appears to be two lots of hatches, and then very importantly, you get the headlight grills here, which again, I'm afraid Airfix haven't really got the excuse they've got on the mesh, because they should not have been filled in. That was absolutely baffling. That was definitely a bad design choice for sheer simplicity, I think. So you've got that, and then you've got your nozzles for your exhaust. I think it is here. You've got some tools. You've got spade tools, and you've got to say these headlight grills are very important. Then most important of all, which was probably the silliest thing in the Airfix kit, if we're being brutally honest, you've got your mesh. And this has been done 3D printed resin, obviously. This covers the exhaust stack. Can you see that? Look at that mesh. Isn't that nice? Proper scale mesh. Now this is a classic example. I know Jason at Model Kit Stuff and I talked about this recently in our video where we had a live stream. I think we're all in agreement. This is the way. This is when sometimes bits of photo etch or 3D printing, you know, he's not the biggest fan, and I agree with him. I'm the same. He's not the biggest fan of this kind of 3D printing everywhere. Let's just throw it, like we were doing with photo etch where it's not needed. But here it is needed. This is a classic example of how to use it in a meaningful way that's really useful. It's absolutely brilliant. So that's going to be an addition to that kit that will just make it pop. You know, these guards on the headlights, and then that mesh exhaust guard. And then you've got some little, I think they're oxygen bottles, aren't they? Fire extinguishers. Handheld fire extinguishers. Just little items. Really well done. Beautiful. So fine, so accurate. I mean, that's exactly what was needed. I mean, I appreciate that Airfix can't do that necessarily. But, you know, they could... If they really want to have an impact, they could do it in the long-term future. I think they should start thinking about planning to include... Get in bed with another manufacturer, so to speak, who can do this stuff for them. Not on every kit. Every kit doesn't need it, but occasionally a kit like this, it really did. It merits it, in a way that others don't. So there you go. So really, that's really nice, isn't it? It's just a joy. It's candy for your eyes, to be honest. Put that back in there. That was a very nice present I got from my brother-in-law, in fact, relative of mine. So that's the first one. Let me show you something else that I think he also gave us. If you bear with me just one tick, while I grab some books. Ooh, there's quite a few actually. Oh, I seem to have picked up a magazine and stolen a magazine from the hotel. That wasn't intentional at all. It's because I dumped all my books and magazines on top of it and didn't realise it wasn't one of ours. Oh. Traveller magazine. Well, I'm not sure that's going to go anywhere but the bin, to be honest. That was completely unintentional. But anyway, let us have a look at what I was supposed to be showing you. Some absolutely glorious stuff here. So, first up, look at this. Now, I'm not going to go through this properly now. I'm just going to give you literally a few seconds. And I'll do a separate show just detailing some of these books because for modellers they are very, very useful indeed. So we've got this Battle of Britain Combat Archive. And you know, this couldn't be better really. It's a bit like that book I showed that I've got, the hardback one, but it goes into a bit more specific details about specific days, specific actions, lovely artworks, and then different reports by different pilots, combat reports. Definitely worthy of having a good old read in some of these. It's not just the British side, it's the German side as well, giving their own flight reports. Combat report, Hurricanes, Messerschmitt 110s. Yeah. Contemporary accounts of 17 Squadron, 66 Squadron. It's invaluable. It's got these incredible. So this is losses, the aircraft that have gone down. You can actually see the ones in the sort of yellowy sandy colour. Those are British losses. Quite a few. This is on what's this? September, is it? 27th of September. This is one of the final days, isn't it, of the battle, really. And they're knocking down. Well, there's quite a lot that seem to have been lost based on that. The Brits seem to have lost a lot that day, about 50-50 in fact, which is unusual. RAF casualties goes into details. And it talks about the officers who have been lost or killed, and the aircraft as well. It goes into proper detail that you don't tend to get anywhere else. Some examples of some of the damage here. You've got Adornia, Cudham near Biggin Hill, Kent. Dornier down, Messerschmitt 110 down here. ME 110 tailplane gone. Saying it's shot down 4 RAF. Well, it's not going to shoot down anymore, that's for sure. It's a wreck. And so on. Another one here. Where's that one taken? Because that's quite hilly. Kimmeridge. Near Swire Head. Where is that then? It's a little bit hilly there. You got some gun camera footage, and so it goes on. You know, some fantastic reference material here. Douglas Bader, combat report by him, talking about giving a short burst to a 109. He took evasive action by rolling on his back and then diving down. He did the same, but pulled out short, and cut him off on the climb. And we had a long chase after him, finally getting near enough for a short range squirt at 400 yards. This caused a puff of white smoke, and he slowly rolled down. Perceptibly, I managed to close up and gave him another short burst. One missed completely, but the other hit him. And besides white vapour, the last squirt caused black smoke to spurt from the port side of the fuselage. And my aeroplane had its windscreen covered with oil from his aircraft. His propeller stopped dead, the engine ceased in other words, and the last I saw of him was him gliding quietly under full control with his engine dead and smoking its way down into the channel. Oh dear. Okay, well there we go. Absolutely brilliant Spitfires here. 616 Squadron. There's a real detailed account. For those of you that enjoyed my Battle of Britain talk, where I was talking about detailed accounts, you'll get a lot from this. Smoking remains of Flight Officer Gordon Sinclair's Hurricane at Woodsdale Farm, Godmersham. Did he survive? Yeah, he floated down on a parachute apparently. Oh, hang on a second. We knew the pilot was safe. He was still floating down, yeah, so he escaped. But here we go. Losses. Yeah, the RAF losses seem to be very close in to each other. Look at that. The Spitfire with its tail blown away. Half the tail gone, the skin. Incredible. Posing with his badly damaged Spitfire, Eric Burgoyne, 3 weeks before he was killed in action. That's sad, isn't it? Oh dear. Yeah, anyway, an incredible book. Gives you visual representations of the sort of volume and condensement of these flights that are coming in. You can see the small groups of British aircraft on the other side. And a very worthy book indeed, which I'll probably go through in more detail at a later date. So there you go. So that's the Battle of Britain Combat Archive. Absolutely brilliant. Then we've got, and many of you that enjoyed my video a few weeks ago where we had the Mustang Mark 1 early Mustangs, Hurricanes, what we're talking about, early Mark 1 Hurricanes. Now we've got Hawker Hurricane Part 2, UK based fighters and bombers. So this is like the sequel to that early version, the Wing Leader book, and again we all know it goes into tremendous. That was Robert Stanford Tuck, I recognise him straight away. Robert Stanford Tuck, who by the way you'll see in, I won't spoil it for you, there's a very interesting thing about him in his early days when he was flying Gladiators, and he had a very nasty crash which I'll talk about later. So there is Robert Stanford Tuck. I'm going to zoom in for this for maximum benefit, I think. There he is, Burma on his Hurricane, and it's talking about all the details of the aircraft, and you get into all the idiosyncrasies of the different models, how they were used, how they were modified. Look at that on the gun stand, testing the guns there. You've got the foot stirrup, the pop-out foot stirrup, and the hand flap. It's a very clever design actually on the Hurricane, it has to be said. I saw a video about that the other day. I can't think who it was though, but somebody was actually demonstrating it. Truly impressive stuff though. Truly impressive stuff. Hurricane 2C, the cannon. Twin Hispano cannons. Mark 1, 20mm cannon. Look at that close up of them there. Wow. Again, absolutely invaluable for modellers. It's like a big spring system, isn't it? It's got a recoil spring system built into it. Can you see that? Like a wound spring on the outside of the barrels. Arming them up, look, with the 20mm ammunition. Gee. It's taking the covers off them here, look, of the barrel muzzle ends. Whoops. So it goes on. There's just a whole plethora of data that you don't want to miss. And if you're getting one of these Qatari Hurricanes, and I've got a sneaking suspicion they might do as a Mark IIC in the future, I think, night fighter versions. There's the LKA registration number. That's the one that was the Matchbox kit, of course. Also reproducing 48th scale by Armour Hobby, you'll recall. So if you're into any of those kits, they're absolutely amazing. Some really good photographs here. LKA, that's the Matchbox aircraft at the bottom, nearest to you. Complete with its flash eliminator plate, which is to stop flash for night fighter use from the engine exhausts, blinding the pilot. Night duty. Look at that. There it is, LKR. Jubilee scheme. Operation Jubilee was the raid on Dieppe, wasn't it? Dieppe raid when they gave air cover. Not the most successful of operations, Dieppe, obviously. There we go. A lovely, lovely book. And then we have similar Wing Leader again. I won't go right the way through this, but there's a couple of photos in here which are very interesting. So Wing Leader Gloucester Gladiator, and we were only just talking about the Battle of Malta, weren't we? A week or two ago. And here we've got all the Gladiator pictures that you need. Reference, brilliant reference, coming into service. 1937. This is the one I was referring to. Civilians survey the wreck. Let me zoom in for this. This is the photo. It's a bit of a sad one. And a lucky one for one pilot. Civilians survey the wreckage of 65 Squadron Gladiators K7940 and K8014 after they collided over Uckfield in Sussex. The crash happened on Monday the 17th of January 1938, killing 7940's pilot, Sergeant Geoffrey Gaskell. The other aircraft, flown by pilot officer Robert Stanford Tuck, bailed out safely and of course became a major ace in the Battle of Britain. Good job he survived, really. Very sad though, just in an accident like that. Just shows you that, you know, flying is pretty dangerous. Peter. Ah! How dangerous is it? It's dangerous. You haven't seen these videos, these training videos I've had to watch and learn about how to escape your burning Spitfire. Ah! Ah! What? I watched that and I turned to my wife and I said, I want my mummy. And it's like, oh yes, and this is how you open your parachute in case it fails. It's like, oh, don't say things like that, don't say things like that. In the event of ME-109s in the area, delay opening your chute until the last possible moment so you're not gunned down in your parachute. No, it didn't say that, I'm just exaggerating slightly, but that's what it would have said during the Battle of Britain, that's what it would have said. Well, I've got another, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks to start worrying about it all over again now. And you have to sign your life away, and it says, this equipment is dangerous, these aircraft are dangerous, this is not covered by the same safety standards as civil aviation in the UK. Blah, blah, blah. And it says, even the safety equipment, i.e. parachute, is dangerous. In other words, it can fail or it can, you know, strangle you or whatever. It's not something to be taken lightly. I don't think it's something that you should, you know, just glibly sign up for. And when you do see the video, it's quite sobering when they talk about the dangers and what can go wrong and blah blah. The thing is, you've got to go into it with your eyes open. Just make sure that you have a clear head and you're nice and refreshed when you go for anything like this. So I won't be having any nice drinky poos the night before that one, I can tell you, that's for sure. No way. I want to be having lots of coffee and, you know, hyper like this. But it'll be fun, I hope. The weather's good, it will be. Anyway, we'll see. So, yeah, more Gladiators, and it goes on in great detail. Prelude to War. Lovely photographs. Lots of detail, of course. I say we'll go into this in more detail another day. Just to give you a little flavour of what's coming, really. And then we get into some of the real meat and potatoes of these aircraft and how they actually were used in battle. Greece, they were used. I think I've skipped. Malta, here we go, Battle of Malta. Faith, hope and charity were undoubtedly the most famous of the Gladiators. Even if the legend is more myth than fact, wearing naval fighter camouflage, 3 of the HAL Flight Sea Gladiators were photographed in June of 1940. There you go. The story of faith, hope and charity caught the public's imagination. I managed to get right behind the Savoy S-79, says the flying officer. Sorry, Flight Lieutenant George Burgess. I managed to get right behind it and shot off the port engine, he says. I was told this happened right over Salima and Valletta and caused quite a stir in the population below. The aircraft caught fire and crashed into the sea off Calafrana. Well, there we go. And there they are. In Malta colours. Oof. Still using their UK camouflage. Sea Gladiator. And so forth. Anyway, we'll get into this more another day because there are other versions there. The captured version and yeah. Latvia was a customer for the Gladiator. I think they were overrun by the Germans, so the Germans got their hands on it, didn't they? Is that right? The Finnish Gladiators, of course, have got the swastika, nothing to do with the Germans. The Finns had used that symbol long before the Germans did, I think. The Finnish swastika markings on the fuselage are in blue on a white disc. There it is. Remarkable stuff. Cockpit details, everything you need for your modelling. Anyway, that's the number one. And then finally, the Avro Anson. Now, the person who kindly gave me this, I did send him the link, and perhaps I ought to just remind everybody else that the day before we went to the Lake District for my trip was I think it was the day, was it? The 11th of September, Thursday, I think it was the Jersey Air Show, and this aircraft, the Mark 1 Anson, was flying, belonging to the Czech Royal Air Force of Czechoslovakia, who own it. It's definitely worth a really nice demonstration display. They did excellent, definitely worth checking out. It's the one Mark 1 that's got the turret on the top as well, so that is definitely worthy of your time. And it's if you've got the Airfix Anson, I can strongly recommend you get this book, frankly. It's definitely going to be a benefit to you. Some really wonderful archive examples of pre-war Ansons. And then we start to get towards the start of the war and they put the camo on them. Oops. The Munich crisis onwards. Sorry, too far out here. From the Munich crisis, we get into the Ansons with the camo on now. Things get a bit more serious. So they actually don't have the guns on. If you look at that turret on the left, it's not got the gun on, and the one on the right, I think, has got the gun. So they quickly, upscale them to include the weaponry. In fact, a lot of these don't have the gun; it's just empty at the back. And World War II operations where the gun is present. I think the Vickers guns. They were certainly was it Browning? Browning. They were certainly present on the one that's in the air show, the Jersey Air Show. Just type in Jersey Air Show. It was a really good show. They had a Bronco did a fantastic display. A Mustang, red arrows. There was Catalina. There was all sorts of stuff. Some really interesting items. Actually, I'm trying to remember them all. Mine's gone a bit blank, but yeah, it's worth checking out. They always do a lovely air show in Jersey, and I keep missing it. I've actually been there years ago. We turned up on the day after, and it had just finished, and they still had the red arrows sitting at the airport. Would you believe? Or it wasn't the full squad. It was like 2 or 3 of them, maybe the backup team or something. I think they were trying to get them refueled. Anyway, digress. But I've never actually seen the actual. I've never actually seen the actual show, even though it's been the day before, or let's try and make amends to that in the future, I think. Look at this thing. Liquid oxygen petrol guided anti-aircraft projectile. Look at the size of this thing. A huge, it's like I don't know what it's like really. It looks to me like a rocket that's put on the back to front, wrong way round. The missile was installed. Oh, okay. The missile is installed back to front, as the test was simply to check functioning of the control vanes in flight. The control vanes. Is that at the back? Oh, and they probably wanted to look down at it. How strange. So it is actually in reverse. Oh, okay. Note the repositioned pitot tube on the nose of the aircraft from the extra aerial mast to move it out of the way. How interesting. Late World War II service. You've got the one that's got no turret on the top, which is a bit like the one that flies around near me. 1944 auxiliary. Yeah, the Ansons are a really nice aircraft, and I say many of you will know that I have one not too far away from where I live that sometimes flies around here. I haven't seen so much of it, but it's only been out I think once this year, which is not sure whether that's due to maintenance issues or weather, but the weather's been great, so I don't know why. Anyway, there we go. So that's a bit of a roundup of where we are and what you can expect to see in September. This Phantom is something I'm really looking forward to doing a review on, because I've never seen that before. In terms of the Mosquito, you're going to ask me about the Mosquito. I put them there, you will have seen 1 or 2 photos where I've been doing some more work on the pilots. I'm just trying to finesse the pilots a little bit, and then once they're done, I think they are the toughest thing to do, I think, really. So once I've got them, I'm fairly happy with them. I'm going to plough on. And the Dark Knight's coming in there, so I'll just start to get on with it. So probably next month there'll be some more physical work to show you. Because obviously we've had this bit of a holiday, so you'll have to forgive me for not being as on the ball in terms of showing you some progress as I would have been had that not happened, and a bit of a distraction obviously. So knuckle down to it now. So there we go. So just I think there's anything else I need to tell you about. We've got some interesting new kits coming from ICM. We've got an interesting Bradley armoured fighting vehicle, amongst other things. And we've also got Lieutenant Gruber from Alolo's little tank coming, which I think you'll find is going to be quite amusing. And other than that, we'll have a proper review of all these items I've just shown you. I'll go through those books in a bit more detail, perhaps have a book night. Should be quite interesting. We'll take it from there. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found it interesting. Whetted your appetite to see some more interesting stuff coming up soon. Over on the other channel, Peter Goes Rogue, you'll find some of my holiday snaps. Very interesting buildings, and it was intended to have a lot more in it. Of course, it was going to have Spitfires and all sorts of things, videos and you know what. But it'll come. Anyway, in the meantime, I should put an appeal out, because we currently only have, he says, we've got about, I think, 640 subscribers, and I really need more. Now that's not the reason my Spitfire flight's been postponed, although it's actually kind of convenient in a way that it has been, because obviously that might help. It would be better if I've got my 1,000 subscribers and I'm actually getting paid for doing all this, you know, on the other channel, like I do here. But we really do need to get that. I think if we haven't got 1,000 subscribers by the time the Spitfire flight is done and the footage is all ready for viewing, I won't be able to show it, because it will just be a waste of my time, and it will benefit me nothing. And this was a very, very expensive and tricky to organise event, so please will you subscribe. Anyone who watches this channel, I think, will enjoy the stuff that I do on Peter Goes Rogue. Some more than others, but I think most of it you'll enjoy. There is lots more to come. The Spitfire is almost like the kick-off of the new, if you like, the new season, the new content, in a big way. But there's going to be other things as well. There's going to be some amusing, comical cooking. There's going to be cars, and there's going to be some history and some sort of talks about subjects that I think will be appealing to modelers, but also appealing to others as well. So please do sign up. It costs you nothing to subscribe. I'll put your link below. Peter Goes Rogue, don't forget. And that's it for now. One final thing before I go though. Some of the sharp-eyed amongst you probably have commented already that I seem to have an interesting new shirt, which is actually one of my birthday presents. And this is a little bit... It's I'm just going to turn the camera slightly for this. It's a little bit racy. I don't know if you noticed this. It's some very, very scantily clad young ladies and dartboards. It's almost a dart fans shirt. And if I pull this, yes, you get the flavour for it. I'm amazed that the person that bought me this, it's amazing that they would allow me to wear such a thing. My good lady wife bought it for me because we thought it'd be brilliant for YouTube. And I've got to be honest, it's pretty racy, some of it is. It's a bit naughty. It's almost like page 3 Dark Girls. Not quite page 3, but it's getting there. And I've also got coming soon another one which is a little bit more tasteful. Well, or is it? The Day of the Dead shirt. Another very impressive shirt. Italian shirts they are. Anyway, I'll give you more info on that when I show the other one, because I know that people will see them and perhaps be interested in maybe getting one themselves, because they are quite cool. And the Day of the Dead one is perfect for around Halloween, October. And it's very bright colours on a dark background. It's quite remarkable. So yes, I was very blessed to get some very nice shirts. I've also got from the same manufacturer actually, because I really took to him. I've also got a beautiful, like, electric Kingfisher blue coloured one. It's got this lovely lining. It's got all different colours on the lining. So I've got some upgraded shirts. So there we go. Just trying to be a little bit more novel, and I have to say this is quite racy, and it's quite easy on the eye, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure I'd go out wearing this at a formal event. I think it might raise one or two eyebrows, to be honest. I'll have to try wearing it without the jacket, because then you'll see just how bad it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for watching once again. And until next time, I just say thank you very much for your time. Stay well, stay safe, and don't forget to tune in, because on this channel we're going to have these books, and we're going to have this beautiful Phantom being reviewed, which will be something very worth looking at. I think that's a really nice kit, and something we've not seen before. So, until next time, thanks a lot, take care of yourselves, and bye for now.